Hey there, church family. Day 22. Getting close to only a week left. Down to 8 days. Hope you're sticking in there. Hope you're enjoying it. Today we're talking about fasting. And it's kind of in theme with everything else Jesus has taught us so far. And that is, if you're doing something for His glory, do it for His glory, not your own. If you're giving, don't let your one hand do what the other hand's doing. Things like that. This is the same way. He said the Pharisees, when they fasted, they just acted all sickly, and they were like, "Oh, I can't hardly move. I'm so hungry. I'm fasting for the Lord. I'm fasting for stop. I mean, that's just that would have been so tiring to hear and see these holier than thou people acting that way. We've all, I'm sure, either willingly or unwillingly gone a day without eating a whole day and survived without fainting and being all unkempt and everything else. And that's what the Lord is telling us here too, is to fast, but keep it between you and the Lord. If you want the rewards from Him, keep it between you and Him. If you want the rewards from man, then make it between you and man, just like we talked about with other things. Now, I'm going to read some things to you from the Didache. If you haven't heard of the Didache, I'm going to spell that. It's Didache. Excuse me. This is a document that was found. It came out in the 1st or 2nd century. It was basically a handbook on how to conduct yourself as a Christian, and how also to do worship services and things like that. So for the early church, so you can find it online. Just Google it, Didache. It's not a very long document, so it won't take you long to read. So I highly encourage everybody to go out and read it and just look at what it teaches. And again, it's not anything biblically based. It's not much different than, I would say, a commentary or a book that some author writes today about how to live like a Christian. But the Didache, I think, is a lot more appropriate given its time, 100 or 200 years after the ascension of Jesus. So it's still very recent, and it hasn't had the opportunity to be as corrupt or corrupted as many of the practices can be today. So the early Christians, just like the Jews, fasting was a regular part of daily discipleship. John Wesley sought to revive that teaching of the Didache and urged early Methodists to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays. He felt so strongly about the matter that he refused to ordain anyone to the Methodist ministry who did not fast on those 2 days. The great Bible commentator Matthew Henry said, "Fasting is a laudable practice, and we have reason to lament that it is generally neglected among Christians." That's true. Hudson Taylor, the great missionary and founder of the China Inland Mission, said, "In Shanxi, I found Chinese Christians who were accustomed to spend time in fasting and prayer. They recognized that this fasting, which so many dislike, which requires faith in God, since it may make one feel weak and poorly, is really a divinely appointed means of grace. Perhaps the greatest hindrance to our work is our own imagined strength. And in fasting, we learn what poor, weak creatures we are, dependent on a meal of meat for the little strength which we are so apt to lean upon. And D. Martin Lloyd-Jones said, quote, I wonder whether we have ever fasted. I wonder whether it has ever occurred to us that we ought to be considering this question of fasting. The fact is that this whole subject seems to have dropped right out of our lives and right out of our whole Christian thinking. I agree. I think we should. I'll be honest. I have fasted, but not really with any type of regularity, and not very disciplined. And I'm going to pray about this. But if the Lord leads me, I think I'm going to take up the Wednesday and Friday fasting and see where it leads me. And if the Lord leads me, I may encourage the whole church to do that as well. But we'll see. I just got to be in prayer about it. So we'll see what happens. It's just another one of those things that now I'm feeling, a conviction. So that's a good thing. You want your pastor, or your spiritual leader, or your shepherd, or whatever you want to call them, to feel and be vulnerable to the Lord and learn, just like you are learning from the Bible. None of us know everything from the Bible inside and out. Even those that can quote the Bible. It's great that you can quote the Bible, but do you know what the words mean when you put them together? Or do you just know the words? Something to think about. Let me know what you think about fasting, and if you've ever done it, or if you have any questions. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Bye.